Have you ever stood in front of someone who walks into a room like they own the world? They speak loudly, interrupt others, brush people off with a smug smile. And worse, they act like they're doing everyone a favor just by being there. People like that throw us off balance. Not just by what they say, but by what they trigger inside us. The urge to respond. To prove we're not stupid. To show we know more. To expose the weakness behind their facade. That's your ego flaring up. It screams for a reaction. I won't let that slide. I need to show who's in charge. I'll hit back with the same energy. But here's the problem. The moment you respond on their level, you're playing their game. And the arrogant person? That's exactly what they want. They want attention. They want a stage. They want to turn provocation into performance. And when you react, you hand them what they crave: importance. That's where Stoicism becomes your invisible shield. It doesn't tell you to stay silent and take it. It teaches you not to act out of wounded pride. Not to lose yourself in proving something that doesn't need proving. Because in truth, their arrogance only has power over you if you give yours away. And the Stoic learns, day after day, to keep that power in their own hands. Without shouting. Without lowering themselves. Without stepping into a battle that only exists in the other person's ego. Stoicism wasn't born in peace. It was forged in chaos, as armor for everything we can't control. Zeno of Citium, the founder, lost everything in a shipwreck. Epictetus was enslaved and beaten. Seneca lived surrounded by power-hungry politicians and betrayal. Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome while dealing with flattery, manipulation, and betrayal from those closest to him. Each had every reason to lose control. Each faced arrogance, lies, and ego. But none of them allowed those things to shape who they became. Epictetus said, "No one can harm you unless you allow it inside." He learned to master his judgments, even as he was physically mistreated. Marcus Aurelius, surrounded by schemers, wrote to himself in private, "The vanity of others can't corrupt me, if I know who I am." They understood. You don't fight pride with more pride, or with submission. You counter it with firmness, with clarity, with a kind of strength that doesn't need to raise its voice to be felt. Stoicism has always been an answer to a loud world. A quiet strength for those who refuse to be pulled into arrogance, whether from others or from their own ego. Because arrogance looks strong, but it's usually a disguise for fear, insecurity, an internal void masked as control. That's why the first Stoic response to arrogance isn't to strike back, it's to see clearly. Wisdom isn't about knowing more. It's about seeing what others are too distracted to reveal. The Stoic looks at the arrogant and asks, why do they need to show off so much? If they were truly whole, why put others down? And most times the answer is clear. They're at war with themselves, trying to win that war by dominating others. Once you see that, the game changes. They're no longer an enemy. They're a wounded person trying to look untouchable. And that doesn't spark anger, it sparks quiet compassion. Or at least, strategic indifference. Wisdom doesn't ask you to correct them. It simply prevents you from copying them. Because reacting in kind means falling into the trap they built. And you don't need to. You can observe without absorbing. Hear without reacting. Move forward without being infected. That's the strength of wisdom. It doesn't clash with pride. It exposes it simply by standing firm, calm, and aware. Responding in kind feels fair. It's instinct. When someone brags, you want to speak up. When someone mocks, the reply is ready on your tongue. And your ego whispers, say it. Show them who they're dealing with. But the Stoic chooses a different path. They summon a rare force, the courage not to play the game. Courage here isn't about being louder. It's staying silent when every part of you wants to explode. It's smiling with integrity while the other person smirks with arrogance. It's staying calm when they try to throw you off balance. That's the strength no one sees, but that keeps your soul firmly anchored. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike those who wronged you." And that takes real bravery, because it's harder to resist the impulse than to give in. The arrogant thrive on reaction. They bait you waiting for the bite. And every time you decline, you prove you're on a different level. Not out of superiority, but out of self-awareness. This courage doesn't crave applause. It doesn't need to be seen. It only needs to be practiced. In the very moment your pride wants a stage, and you choose grounded presence instead. Arrogance hurts because it wounds our dignity. It's like someone saying, without saying, "I'm better than you." And the reflex is to strike back, to return the insult, to level the field with fire. But the Stoic knows, justice isn't in giving what they gave you. It's in not letting their worst shape your best. But the Stoic sees justice differently. To them, justice isn't about striking back. It's about acting with integrity, even when others don't. It's about treating others with respect, not because they deserve it, but because you won't stop being who you are. Seneca said, "We should treat everyone with the dignity we'd be proud to practice, even if they don't return it." That's not weakness. It's self-mastery. When you treat the arrogant with respect, you're not saying you agree with them. You're saying you won't stoop to their level. You're preserving your own honor. You're saying without saying, "You may think you're better than everyone, but I won't become worse because of you." Justice isn't about giving in. Justice is about holding your ground with fairness, even under pressure. It means not letting someone else's behavior dictate your own. Respecting the arrogant isn't accepting arrogance. It's refusing to be shaped by it. It's being firm with grace, and remembering that your posture is always yours, no matter what the other person brings to the table. Here's the hard truth. Sometimes the problem isn't just the arrogant person. It's the arrogant part they awaken in us. Because when someone treats us with condescension, acts superior, or tries to shine by belittling others, something inside us rises up too. Who does he think he is? I'll show him who really knows their stuff. I need to put him in his place. That's the ego waking up, and it's sneaky. It disguises itself as justice. It wears the mask of reason. But deep down it wants the same thing, to feel superior. That's where the virtue of temperance comes in. The quiet self-control that breaks the cycle. Temperance is taking a step inward before stepping outward. It's feeling the anger rise, and not letting it become action. It's realizing that you want to win, but remembering that in this kind of battle, winning means losing yourself. The Stoic takes a deep breath. They recognize the urge, but don't obey it. They feel the pride trying to take over, but they choose to speak lower, not louder. Because they know, if you need to prove you're better, you're already being ruled. Temperance doesn't deny your feelings. It simply refuses to let them control your behavior. And this choice, repeated day after day, allows the other person's pride to meet something it can't dominate. A presence that absorbs, dissolves, and holds firm. Epictetus taught that peace begins with a simple distinction. Some things are up to us, others are not. That's the foundation of the dichotomy of control. Simple, yet powerful. Especially when dealing with arrogant people. Because the truth is, you don't control how others behave. Not the sarcastic tone. Not the dismissive looks. Not the ego-driven comments. You can speak with kindness and still be met with contempt. You can be fair and still be treated with superiority. But you always control how you respond. And that choice changes everything. When you try to change the other person, you waste energy. When you try to control the situation, you waste time. But when you focus only on what's up to you, you gain power. Real power. The arrogant person wants to provoke you. They want to pull you into their arena. And when you don't react, they lose the power they thought they had over you. The dichotomy of control is like an invisible shield. It doesn't stop the arrow, but it stops it from piercing you. The Stoic pauses and asks, "Is this under my control?" If yes, they act. If no, they let go. And by letting go of the urge to control others, they reconnect with the one thing that truly matters, their own character. That's where their freedom lives. That's where victory is found. Have you ever wished certain people would just disappear? That coworker who thinks they're better than everyone. That relative who acts like they were born with all the answers. That boss who reminds you daily that they're above you. But the Stoic thinks differently. They practice a radical principle called Amor Fati, love your fate. Not just tolerating what happens, but embracing what can't be avoided. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't wish for events to happen as you want. Wish for them to happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly." That includes difficult people, arrogant ones, challenging ones, because they're not on your path by accident. They're there to train you. Their presence is an invitation, test, a daily chance to strengthen your patience, your composure, your ability to stay whole in the face of someone else's ego. When you change the question from, "Why is this person here?" to, "What is this person teaching me?" irritation turns into insight. You stop resisting reality and start using it as a tool for growth. Amor Fati isn't about liking arrogance. It's about accepting that it exists and choosing to grow through it, without wasting time trying to change what you can't, and without draining energy trying to push away people who were only meant to sharpen your mind. You will die. I will too. And so will every arrogant person you've ever met. That's brutal, but it's freeing. The Stoics called it Memento Mori, remember death. Not as a threat, but as clarity. A reminder that life is too short to waste on petty battles. A few years from now, you won't remember that meeting where someone cut you off, or the arrogant reply in the family chat, or the stranger at the bank with the smug attitude, because none of it matters as much as it feels like it does right now. Memento Mori is a filter. It helps you separate what truly matters from what only feels urgent in the heat of emotion. When you see life through the lens of its inevitable end, other people's pride loses its grip, and your urge to react loses its urgency. Memento Mori isn't about escape. It's a return to what matters, to who you want to be, even in uncomfortable moments. Remembering that time is short makes you choose your battles more wisely, and it makes one thing clear. Some provocations don't deserve a response. They deserve silence. Most people believe winning means responding, silencing the other person, teaching them a lesson. But the Stoic has learned another kind of victory, the kind that happens when you refuse to lower yourself. When someone shows off to seem bigger, and you stay exactly your size, without shrinking, but also without inflating. You win without fighting. This is the kind of victory that doesn't need an audience, that doesn't demand applause, that doesn't raise its voice. It's an internal, quiet, steady choice. It's looking at someone's ego and thinking, I don't need to compete with that. I'm not less because I choose not to react. You win when you decline the invitation to conflict, when you protect your peace as something sacred, when you realize that true greatness is not in pushing others down, but in standing tall without needing to push anyone. That victory won't be in the spotlight, but it will show on your face, in your posture, in the lightness with which you move forward, while the other person is still trying to prove something that only matters to them. You won't escape arrogant people. They'll be in traffic, in meetings, on social media, and sometimes even in your own home. But you can escape the trap of reacting the way they expect. Stoicism doesn't make you cold, indifferent, or passive. It makes you aware, able to see that not every provocation deserves a response, that not every attack needs a counterattack, and that often the greatest sign of strength is silence filled with virtue. Staying calm, clear, and grounded in the face of someone else's ego is a practice. And like any practice, it takes repetition. It involves setbacks, but it also brings real rewards. Less stress, more clarity. Less anger, more presence. Less need to win, more inner freedom. Today you can begin that practice. You don't need a perfect moment. Just the next difficult conversation. The next condescending glance, the next arrogant tone. That is your moment. Not to change the other person, but to show yourself what you're made of. Because in the end, as Marcus Aurelius said, the best way to defend yourself is not to become like them. That's the invitation, and that's the path.